Welcome to Disciples Leadership Digest, where we explore all the ways disciples are leading in mission to transform church, society, and world. I'm Chris Dorsey, President of Higher Education and Leadership Ministries for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Thank you for joining us on this journey. The Christian Church Disciples of Christ has had a history of being a compassionate and responsive church. We respond to disasters, crises all over the world and here at home in North America. Today, we learn a little bit more about how the church responds to those disasters in talking to Nguyen, Executive Director of Week of Compassion. Good morning, V. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Chris. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. I realize it must be pretty early out there for you in California. And so I really do thank you for spending this time with us today.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk with you about the work that we do and check in on how you are doing.
Yeah. So we've known each other for a long time, all the way back to the University of Chicago. Interestingly enough, this is your anniversary in this role, right? You're the Executive Director of Week of Compassion, and you've been in this role for almost exactly 7 years. So happy anniversary.
Thank you so much. I can't believe that it's been that long. It's been a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful time getting to work with many of our partners. I just can't believe that it has gone so fast.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind trip and whirlwind time, I'm sure. So I know that you're pretty busy, and given what's happening all over the world, I know that your time is quite valuable. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. But what I'm hoping to get a sense from you today is just the work of Week of Compassion, what your role is with Week of Compassion, and maybe to just get a sense of what it means to lead such an important organization of the church. So really quickly, can you tell me what Week of Compassion does for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ?
Yes, we are the Relief, Refugee, and Development Mission Fund of the denomination, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And so we work with partners here at home in the United States and in Canada and all over the world. Whenever there's a disaster, we respond on behalf of the church. Whenever there's a refugee crisis, we respond through our network of partners that we've been doing this for over 7 decades. We respond as much as we can in times of needs, meeting with families, with individuals where they are to respond to the moment of disasters.
Thank you. It's an extremely important ministry of the church, and a lot of resources are needed all over the world. And so I want to thank you on behalf of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ that Week of Compassion exists so that we can feel and we can participate in the mission of caring for the least of these all over the world, especially in times of urgent need. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you mentioned partners. What does that mean? When you say we work with partners, are you talking about other ministries, other organizations? What does the nature of that partnership look like?
It goes with the core of who we are as disciples, that working, being in relationship with others, knowing that we can't do this work alone, that unity is our polar star. So that means we can accomplish more when we work together with many of the partners. And some of these partners, we, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, helped started over 70 years ago, one of which is Church World Service. They are all over the world on our behalf. We work with them to respond to in many areas of the world. And so the reason why we work with partners is because the world is such a big place. And right now, there's so many disasters happening all at once. And so not one single ministry or one single organization or one government can do any of the work on their own. And so the idea behind all of that is that if we come together, if we work together, we're able to respond more effectively, we're able to respond quickly, and we're able to be more sustainable long-term in many of the programs that we work. So whenever we enter into a situation, we are always seeking partnership. We are always seeking other denomination, other ministries, and ask ourselves, who can we do this work together with? Because, you know, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, we are a small denomination, but we have a huge impact, especially in the ecumenical setting. When we are working with other NGOs, when we are working with international partners, they know who we are because we are always seeking partnership to respond. And so we never do this work on our own. We are always known as that denomination that collaborate with other denominations across the board.
That's good. That's good to know. And so one of the things that, and again, I'm mindful of what's happening in your work now. Even as we record this, there are three major disasters unfolding in the world today. We have the crisis in Afghanistan with the evacuations and the refugees that are now having to leave and flee because of the crisis there. We also have the recent earthquake in Haiti, and we know that the history of that country, certainly in recent years, has been that earthquakes have had just a very devastating impact on their country, and we've had another one recently. And then we have the crisis with the Hurricane Ida down in the Gulf of Mexico, which has not only wreaked havoc and created devastation in southern Louisiana, but is also moving north and leaving a wake of devastation in its path. So one of the things that I'm fascinated by, and I'm sure lots of people are curious to know, what does it mean to try and deal with such diverse disasters simultaneously? Because week of compassion responds always. You just wade in and do what's necessary. So how do you and your organization handle these kinds of diverse disasters when they emerge simultaneously like this?
That's a great question, Chris. Thank you so much. You know, there are always more than one disaster happening at a time. Right now, it's just those are just really big, and the news media, they are watching and covering the situation. You're right. Haiti was hit with an earthquake, and then a tropical storm came along. And then on top of that, a couple of weeks later, we have Afghanistan. And then the news started covering Afghanistan. And then now we have Hurricane Ida. It was in Louisiana on the Gulf Coast, and now it's moving along into the Northeast. This morning when I woke up, all over my phone alert were, how New Jersey and New York, the subways have been flooded and everything have been stopped. It's tragic, all the things that are happening. And it is difficult for us as a ministry, as a disaster ministry, to be able to focus on all of them. But we try our really best. And it goes back to our relationship with our partners. Our partners have not been around. It's not something that we have just created recently. We have been in relationship with many of our partners for decades. And so they are in places to respond on our behalf. They are doing initial assessment still, even though Haiti earthquake happened about a month ago. Right now is their early assessment, providing immediate relief. But our goal, what we do is while we focus on the immediate relief, the key thing for us is that focusing on the long-term rebuilding. Once the news is no longer covering Haiti, has moved on to other things, our ministry will continue to rebuild. Right now, we are not rebuilding homes yet because we are still assessing the damage. But our goal in the next several months is, once we get the assessment, is to work with local communities to help rebuild homes, schools, whatever is needed for those areas. And so the key to disaster happening at the same time is really our partners. who have been doing this work for so long. They have the expertise. They already had engineer on the ground. Right now, if you don't have engineers in Haiti, it is impossible for you to get engineers to really do the assessment. But luckily, many of our partners have the infrastructure in doing that. Same thing with the situation in Afghanistan. We have several partners across the United States. One of them, again, is Church World Service, one of the resettlement agencies in the United States, working with local communities. Many of the staff at Church World Service are currently in some of the military bases where the Afghans are being placed. And then the staff of Church World Service will work with many of those families to help process them through the complicated paperwork of everything before they are sent out into various communities where local disciples will be a part and engage in that work. So really, I mean, we are able to do this because of the network of partnership that we have everywhere. And really, in about 6 months, everyone else will be focused on something new and different, maybe a different disaster. But Week of Compassion will continue to be doing this work. What you name it, there's 3 major disasters. In my head, I wish that was true. I wish that there was only 3. We are continuing to respond in the situation in Myanmar, the conflict there, of course, the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. That's not going away. And of course, we have extreme poverty due to COVID-19 that's happening across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, working with our partners to help families and communities have access to basic needs of food and medicine during this pandemic times, when many of those communities are either in shutdown or employment has gone way down because of the lockdown in many of these places. And so really, there's a lot of disasters that are happening, disasters that have taken place in the last several years. We are continuing to respond. And we're able to do that because of the tremendous relationship that we have with many of our partners.
That's good. Yeah, I've often heard that Week of Compassion is one of the first to arrive and the last to leave in terms of responding to major disasters. Now, obviously, this takes a lot of resources. You're talking about partnering and supporting partners and working with partners, engaging partners. How does Week of Compassion fund all of this work? I know that to some extent it is a fund, but what is the mechanisms of support that Week of Compassion actually uses in order to help do this work all over the world?
One of the great things about this ministry is our generous donors, our generous churches, disciple churches and individuals who give to support the work that we do. Whenever a donor gives money to Week of Compassion, we really maximize each dollar, because we recognize that we can't do the work alone. And so we leverage our money with other partners. Whenever we support something, we would invite other partners to also add their support into the response. And so because of all of those relationships that we have, every dollar that we put into a response, really, we get almost $10 in return. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Because it's not just us putting in the dollar, it's our ecumenical partners all doing this work together, putting more money into the pot so that we can come together and respond. And really, we have low administrative costs. I mean, you look at Week of Compassion, we only have a few full-time staff doing this work because we are really efficient. We are really focused on what it is that we are trying to do. And we have the expertise and the knowledge of doing this work. We've been doing this for quite some time now, and our partners have been doing this for quite some time. And so the resources that we have go a long way in our response.
Yeah, that's good. And I know how important it is to have good partners who are actually making the contributions, sacrificing, being quite generous with their funds to support this work. And you not only do you have the annual fund contribution in terms of the week where you focus on giving, but people can give year round. They don't have to just give at that one time of year. They can give it any time. And I know also they can set up funds specifically that will give money in perpetuity. So there's lots of ways that many of our churches and our individuals have been giving, and I know how important that is. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about you. So you've been in this role for 7 years now. Congratulations. What do you think some of the gifts and skills are that you bring to this job? Now, let me say this. I know that from your sort of educational background, we have a shared experience in that both of us were at the University of Chicago, and I believe you did your undergraduate at Texas Christian University, both two fine disciples organizations. But beyond your education, and what are some of the experiences that you've had that have prepared you for this work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. Thank you. One of the things that that I really bring, and then I really try to think through all the time, is I was born in Vietnam, and the fall of Saigon really affected me and my family, and we were refugees for several years coming to the United States. And so as I see what's happening right now around the world, places like Afghanistan, but not just Afghanistan. We have millions of people who are being displaced. They're being displaced by war, by conflict, but also by environmental impact. Places where they can no longer live because the land is not producing food for them, or it is no longer giving them enough water to survive. And so they are forced to move. And so we have millions of migrants, people who are displaced, trying to find safety. And so when I was a kid, we were displaced too. We were forced to flee because of the fall of Saigon. And I think about that. I think about what it means to be in that situation, and what it means now to be in this position as the executive director of Wicked Compassion. I was just a kid back then, but we were so lucky that the church plays such an important role in where we are today. And I believe that the Christian Church Disciples of Christ continue to play that major role in so many people's lives across the world. Either they might be displaced because of disasters right now in Louisiana, the Northeast, or in Haiti, or disaster because of conflict like Afghanistan. But the church continues to figure out how to walk with them, but really help them resettle to a place that is safe. The church did that for me and did that for millions of people in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we will continue to do that together with other partners. And so I think about that all the time. I think about, like, for me, this is a calling that is not just a job. I mean, I think about it all the time in that it is personal for me in so many ways, but also it is also something that I'm grateful for the opportunity. Yeah. I'm grateful, that but my son right now, who's 6 years old, when I was 6 years old, I was in refugee camp, and I think about him. He's in first grade. He's only been in school for 2 weeks now, and every morning, he and I would walk to school together, and I would pick him up, and we would just talk about his day. And I think about what it was like for me when I was a kid and what he's going through now, and I think about like the situation that we face right now around the world. The church provided that safe space for me, and I want the church to continue to do that. And that's why we're working so hard right now with so many of our partners to make sure that as people are being displaced, that we are working together, that we are providing the basic needs, but really we are providing long-term sustainable communities so that people can thrive to the fullest. So that's why that's what I bring in the sense that the personal experience, and really having a sense that that the church is not done. The
Yeah.
church continues to play such a vital role in so many people's life.
Yeah. Thank you, V. So it really is personal, and you bring that personal connection and the empathy that's important for leadership, which is an important quality in any kind of leadership. I think you're way too modest. I know that you've just done an amazing job in leading Week of Compassion, and I want to thank you on behalf of the entire church. I do want to ask you about your son. So you said Andrew is about the same age as you were when you were experiencing the departure from Vietnam and becoming a refugee. Does he know what you do? Does he have a real sense of the kind of work that you do?
Nope, he does not. He thinks I should stay home all day and look at the computer, which is great.
Yeah.
But we do. There are moments. I think this is the best part. There are moments where he does ask, and I try to have that conversation with him.
Mm,
And it's not just a single moment. It's going to be many moments, and
mm,
those moments I love, and it gives me, it energizes me to continue to do this work, to
yeah.
continue to get up early in the morning, to talk to our partners all over the world. And I love that. There are moments like that right now with my son where, because to be honest, when I was 6, I really didn't have a normal kid's life. And there are millions of kids who don't have a normal
Yeah.
kid's life. And I just want him to have a normal life, walking to school together, running around in class, having fun, feeling safe, and thinking that he can do anything. I think
Yeah.
we all want that. And so there are moments where we do get to talk about my work. And when he does get it, it's a great feeling. But most of the time, he doesn't know yet what it is that I do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about your work is that not only do you get to think about your own kid, but you think about other people's kids and the impact that Week of Compassion has on other people's kids, and the prayer that we all have is that kids all over the world will have the same kind of comfort, the same kind of stable upbringing that our kids have. And so I think that's such an important part of what Week of Compassion does. So thank you again, V. I've watched the sun come up behind you. So I know that it's time for you to, well, you've already started your day, but time to continue through the day. So I just thank you so much for spending this time with us and helping us to understand the work of Week of Compassion and the leadership that you bring to it. We will have a link after we finish up that will show people how they can give to Week of Compassion, how they can give to Disciples Mission Fund, or how they can give to HELM. We know that the work that we do as a church cannot be done without the generosity of so many people. And we want to thank all of Week of Compassion supporters, HELM supporters, and the Christian Church Disciples of Christ for supporting these important missions. So thank you again, V.
Thank you, Chris, for this opportunity.
If you would like to know how you can support the ministries of HELM, Week of Compassion, or Disciples Mission Fund, please go to the following links. Thank you for joining us on this journey.